By the late 1950s and early 1960s, commercial aviation was entering a paradoxical era. Aircraft were becoming faster, larger, and more capable, yet the rules governing where they could fly were still anchored to the mechanical realities of early jet engines. Reliability was improving, but it was not trusted. Regulators, airlines, and passengers all shared the same underlying fear. An engine failure far from land was still a gamble no one wanted to take. At the center of this was regulation. Long before the term ETOPS existed, civil aviation authorities on both sides of the Atlantic imposed strict diversion limits on twin-engine aircraft. In practice, this meant that a jet with only two engines could never be more than 60 minutes from a suitable diversion airport, calculated at single-engine cruise speed. Over oceans, deserts, polar regions, and large parts of the developing world, that single rule drew hard geographic lines in the sky. Routes across the North Atlantic, the South Atlantic, the Pacific, and vast stretches of Africa and Asia were effectively off-limits to twin jets, regardless of how advanced they were becoming. Four engines solved the regulatory problem, but they created an economic one. Aircraft like the Boeing 707 and Douglas DC-8 had proven intercontinental jet travel was viable, but they were expensive to operate and increasingly mismatched to airline needs by the mid-1960s. Fuel burn was high, maintenance costs scaled directly with engine count, and many routes simply did not justify the capacity or cost of four engines. The Boeing 747, launched in 1966 and first flown in 1969, magnified this problem. It was revolutionary, but it was also enormous. For many airlines, especially those focused on medium-density long-haul routes, the 747 was far more airplane than they needed. This is where the trijet emerged, not as a stylistic choice, but as a rational compromise shaped by regulation, technology, and perception. Three engines offered something no other configuration could at the time: redundancy that regulators would approve, range that airlines demanded, and operating costs that accountants could defend. With three engines, an aircraft could lose one power plant and still retain two-engine performance margins, a psychological and regulatory threshold that mattered deeply in the 1960s and early 1970s. Overwater operations with three engines were seen as inherently safer, even if the statistical case was still evolving. Engine technology explains why this mindset persisted. Early high-bypass turbofans were still in development, and first-generation jet engines suffered from shorter times between overhauls, higher vibration, and less predictable failure modes than modern designs. The Pratt & Whitney JT8D, General Electric CF6, and Rolls-Royce RB211 were steps forward, but they had not yet earned unconditional trust. In that environment, redundancy was not a luxury, it was reassurance. Airlines sold safety as much as speed, and passengers remembered the failures of early jets far more vividly than their successes. By the mid-1960s, this thinking had hardened into consensus across the industry. American Airlines wanted a wide-body that could dominate high-frequency domestic trunk routes while retaining the ability to fly long-range missions without operational penalties. United Airlines wanted an aircraft that could cross oceans without the cost and complexity of four engines. Eastern Airlines, under the leadership of Frank Borman, a former astronaut with an uncompromising view of safety, placed exceptional weight on automation, redundancy, and system depth, particularly for extended overwater operations. Across Europe, Asia, and Latin America, carriers voiced the same requirement almost word for word: a mid-size wide-body that regulators would approve, passengers would trust, and balance sheets could tolerate. The numbers defined the gap with precision. Airlines were asking for an aircraft capable of carrying roughly 250 to 300 passengers, with true intercontinental range, unrestricted by diversion limits, and efficient enough to replace high-density 707 and DC-8 services without stepping into jumbo jet economics. In the regulatory environment of the time, that requirement pointed in only one direction: not two engines, not four, three. This demand did not exist in isolation. It arrived at the same moment manufacturers were looking for their next strategic move. Boeing was consumed by the 747. Airbus had not yet launched its first aircraft. That left space, commercially and psychologically, for new solutions. Into that space stepped two companies targeting the same airlines, the same routes, and the same market gap, but with radically different philosophies. The trijet was not yet inevitable, but before ETOPS, before ultra-reliable twin jets, and before economics finally overruled perception, it was the most logical answer the industry had. By the late 1970s, the technological reality of jet engines had quietly outpaced the regulatory world that governed them. High-bypass turbofans were no longer experimental machines with fragile margins. They were becoming stable, predictable, and, most importantly, measurably reliable. Dispatch reliability figures climbed year after year. In-flight shutdown rates fell dramatically, and manufacturers could now demonstrate, with data rather than confidence, that modern engines were fundamentally different from those of the early jet age. This is where ETOPS entered the picture. Extended-range twin-engine operational performance standards did not begin as a bold deregulation effort or a revolutionary safety framework. It began as a narrow technical accommodation. In 1985, the FAA formally introduced ETOPS 120, allowing twin-engine aircraft to fly routes that placed them up to 120 minutes from a diversion airport, provided they met strict maintenance, crew training, and reliability requirements. On paper, ETOPS was about safety. In practice, it was about proving something regulators had resisted for decades, that engine count was no longer a valid proxy for risk. Instead of assuming danger based on configuration, ETOPS evaluated systems holistically. Engine shutdown rates, redundancy in electrical and hydraulic systems, fire suppression, maintenance discipline, and airline operational culture. If an aircraft and its operator could meet those standards, the old 60-minute rule lost its justification. The change accelerated quickly. ETOPS 180 followed, then ETOPS 207, and eventually ETOPS 330, opening virtually every long-haul route on the planet to twin-engine aircraft. With each expansion, the logic that had sustained trijets eroded further. The redundancy they offered was now regulatory surplus. What had once been a necessity became excess weight, excess fuel burn, and excess maintenance. ETOPS solved a real problem. It aligned regulation with actual engineering capability. But it did not solve everything it claimed to. It did not eliminate risk. It redefined acceptable risk in economic terms. The winners were obvious almost overnight. Twin-engine aircraft were lighter, simpler, and cheaper to operate. Two engines meant lower fuel burn, fewer spare parts, smaller maintenance crews, and less structural reinforcement. When ETOPS removed the geographic handcuffs that had constrained them, twins inherited routes that had been the exclusive domain of trijets and quadjets for decades. Aircraft like the Boeing 767, Airbus A300-600, and later the A330 and 777 suddenly became universal solutions. Airlines could fly the same aircraft domestically, transcontinentally, and intercontinentally without changing fleet types. Scheduling simplified, crew commonality improved, capital risk fell. Fleet planners no longer had to justify a specialized aircraft category built around regulatory limitations that no longer existed. Trijets, by contrast, lost their only unassailable advantage. Their third engine no longer bought access, it only added cost. Fuel burn was higher than twins, but without the payload advantage of four engines. Maintenance complexity increased without regulatory payoff, and in a post-ETOPS world, airlines began asking a brutal question. What problem does this aircraft still solve? The answer, increasingly, was none. Risk models changed. Insurance assumptions shifted. Airline executives recalculated exposure using probabilistic data rather than configuration-based fear. The emotional comfort of three engines could not compete with spreadsheets that showed millions in annual savings per aircraft. This is why the abandonment felt sudden. It was not gradual preference drift, it was a threshold event. Once the rule changed, the rationale collapsed. Trijets did not become unsafe, they became unjustifiable. The long-term effect of ETOPS was not just the disappearance of trijets, it was the reshaping of aircraft design philosophy itself. Fleets became more homogeneous. Airlines standardized around fewer types, optimized for efficiency rather than redundancy. The diversity of solutions that once characterized commercial aviation narrowed. Design philosophies converged. Instead of multiple answers to the same problem, 2 engines, 3 engines, 4 engines, the industry settled on one. Engine reliability, systems depth, and operational discipline replaced brute force redundancy. The result was unprecedented efficiency, lower fares, and global route networks that would have been economically impossible under earlier rules. But something was lost. Trijets represented a moment when regulation, technology, and psychology intersected in a uniquely creative way. They were solutions born from constraint. Once that constraint vanished, so did the incentive to explore alternative architectures. Will trijets return? Almost certainly not. Modern engines are too reliable, certification frameworks too mature, and economics too unforgiving. ETOPS did not kill trijets by banning them, it killed them by making them unnecessary. What aviation gained was efficiency, scale, and global connectivity. What it lost was variety, and a reminder that entire aircraft categories can exist, thrive, and disappear not because the airplanes failed, but because the rules changed underneath them.